Esther here in the neighborhood. Today we've got our special guest. We have Amanda Pulcine. She's coming to us today from Baja California, and she's going to talk about her job working with the chocolate factory and what some of the things that she would like to share with her journaling. Please stay in there, and if you have any questions, you can make the comments below. And so thank you so much for joining us, and enjoy the show. Recording in progress. All right, so here we are today, the day after Christmas, and I decided I would like to call a friend and find out how she's doing today. This is Esther in the neighborhood, and we are going to call a dear friend of mine, Amanda Pulcine, who is located in another area, and we do have Amanda on the screen already. So hi, Amanda.
Hello.
And obviously you are dressed a little bit different than I am. So would you like to tell our viewers where we are Zooming from here today? How am I reaching you? Where are you located?
I am in Puerto Viejo in Costa Rica, and that is in the very southern part of Costa Rica on the Mediterranean side. So I'm much more in the jungle than the normal side. And it's about a 30-minute drive to Panama. So it just relates because Costa Rica is a long country. So
you said 30 minutes?
To Panama, yeah. I just went to Panama last weekend.
I guess I need to relook at my geography there and the map. I had no idea you were that close from where you are located. And I know that the lifestyle there is just a little bit different than what it is here in the States. And because it's the day after Christmas, I know that in the past we did something that was really fun. And one thing that you do that a lot of people have thought about, but I don't know how many people really think how wonderful that is that you journal. Can you tell me a little bit about your journaling?
Yes, I have had many experiences in my life that are extraordinary. Sometimes you could call it serendipitous or synchronicity all taking place. And I tell these stories to people and everybody keeps saying to me, are you writing this down? Are you writing this down? And so a few years ago, I started to do that. And so that's one aspect of my journaling. The other aspect is I like to take notes on the books that I'm reading, and that could be a varied of topics, anywhere from psychology to intra and interpersonal work to, I mean, it goes on and on and on and on of science, neurology, of all my interests. And so I like to take detailed notes, and I put that in my journal. And then also, I have been doing the artist's way, and that requires you to do 3 pages of longhand journal where you're not even paying attention to your sentence structure or what you're doing. You're just letting it flow out. And I'm still working through that process. So we're not going into that journal because that's private. But the journal that we are going to go through today is the other one I mentioned, with more of the personal life and then notes on what I've been doing here at the farm and all the other things I've been learning. And so what we'll do today is I'll just spin the notebook around and flip to a page and put my finger on it with my eyes shut. And that will be the impetus, the spark of our conversation and where my time with Esther's neighborhood will lead us.
Okay. Well, this sounds like a fun process, because the first thing that comes to mind is Back to the Future. So that we're in the future now, but we're going to reverse back to see what happened on this particular time and date. So yeah, I'm going to let you do your thing, and then I'll just let you start speaking. And you, is it okay if you give us the year in your journal? I mean, whatever you feel like sharing, that'd be great.
Of course.
So thank you.
Spin it around. Thank you. And we won't know if we're top or we're bottom. And let's go to this page. Okay, so also in this journal, I refer to something called, it's an astrology app, and it's very eerily correct for exactly what you not want to hear, and it's not always, you know, everything's magic and sparkles and pretty. Like they kind of cut in, and somehow it is strangely correct of exactly where I am, and it's taking into account your entire chart. So and whatever transits are happening, and what that means to a layperson is just how the planets are lined up in the sky, and then also how they exist with each other in this particular moment. So you have a birth chart, which most people know what that is, and that is your sun sign. So I'm a Pisces, and Esther is a Libra. Is that right? What? Oh,
Actually, in January, I'm a Capricorn.
you're a Capricorn. All right. I don't know where I got Libra from, but so birthday is coming
One of
up.
those goat things, you know, one of those goats that climb up, you know.
Strong and steady wins the race, you know, just like and it to work with Capricorn energy, which Venus was just in Capricorn and it went into retrograde. That might be beyond the scope of what we're doing here, but so what I pointed to in the journal was a quote from this CoStar app, which says, "Creativity is a process. You have to show up for it consistently with discipline." This is coming Capricorn, which is consistency and discipline, the go coming up the hill. That's the energetic qualities of Capricorn. But it's also showing up in the exact time when I'm looking at my life and the choices I've made and doing this book called The Artist's Way. And this is a book by Julia Cameron, and it challenges you to go back and look and see how you are having creativity or the lack thereof in your life. And many times creative people have a hard time because we were shut down by a teacher or a parent, or something happened when we were younger and the child interpreted that as it's not possible, or you're not good enough, you're not creative enough, and then you continue to create your whole life on this story you told yourself at that age. And so this book is all about unblocking your creative flow and letting that come into your life in all these different ways. And everyone is creative, and it's your God-given right to be. Creation is God, and that's what we are. It's the creativity comes through that. So, and she uses the word God very loosely. So that can be the universe, it can be nature. She's not trying to debate who's right or how one defines what God is. You can have any definition, and more just tapping to that force to allow you, you know, many processes are creative, even if it's inventive, or it still could be in a scientific way. It can be very creative as well, and just tapping into that human right, really. And so I've been working through this, and it has to go back and look at, where did you get blocked, or what are the biggest memories you can remember where you were embarrassed in front of a group, or you didn't get to do what you wanted, or whatever it is. We all have our stories. And so it's really interesting that to go back and actually look and to work through these blocks. And this book has been given to me now 3 times. I've had this book for 15 years.
Wonderful.
And I have 2 copies at home, and I almost brought one. And my bag was too heavy. And at the last second, as the Uber was pulling in to take me to Costa Rica to the airport, I took the book out of my bag and threw it in my car. And I said, if I'm supposed to do the book, I'll find it in Costa Rica. And I said it flippantly and like a joke, because how in the heck are you ever going to find this English book in Costa Rica? And lo and behold, somehow I end up at this chocolate farm where I'm volunteering here and talking to the woman that owns it. And she says to me, have you ever done the artist way? And I almost fell over. I was just like, I'm like, no, but
synchronicity when those things happen. It's just like, oh, sometimes it's mind blowing.
you've got my attention. And so I'm doing an apprenticeship here or an internship. And so I'm paying her to volunteer to learn about the things on the farm. And part of my training now is she's checking in on me and making sure I'm sticking with this program. And that's awesome, because obviously I've had it for 15 years and nothing has happened. And so the third time this came my way, I'm like, okay, universe, you've got my attention. I will now start to look in this, and it's just such a gift. And I am so grateful to be here and to be doing this in such a lovely environment where I get to make chocolate. She's already had me design a label for her. I've got to use my creativity, and I always dismiss it. And I'm very creative, and I just dismiss it like I was told once, we won't mention who, that you'll never make any money as an artist. So you have to go to school and you have to learn, which I did. And as it turns out, I know a ton of people that I judged once upon a time. They're artists. And I was like, they're going to be starving on the streets and they're going to be poor. And like, how are they going to take care of themselves? And turns out they're all working for like Cirque du Soleil or designing clothes, or they're working in Hollywood designing, pictures and movies and illustration, and it just shows you that's not true, and to not go into these limiting beliefs and to utilize your creativity and to follow it, because you have no idea where it will lead, and it just opens one door and then the next door and then the next door, and to trust that process.
I like what you're saying, Amanda, because I think that that's a beautiful lesson for those that are going to absorb what you are sharing here, because so many people think that when you design your life and you are creative, that you have to follow a certain path. You have to be on a certain area and do all the steps accordingly. And I think that there's so many individuals that have talent like yourself that have been misinformed, because that's really not how you trust your gift and to watch it unfold. So this is a perfect example. And I thank you for sharing that. And I think that's exciting, very exciting for you.
Yeah, and it's unfolding and even just coming to this farm, like this particular one, with the book, with the woman that's encouraging, she's supporting. It's a great way to volunteer. I'm really enjoying it's a way that I get to be in Costa Rica and travel to volunteer and help to be in community, because I've also noticed amongst all my studies that I do, I dedicate hours a day reading these books and they're all great, but if you're not grounding them in your life and really looking at how do you react when you're challenged, here we're living in community, so multiple people are sharing the kitchens. We have a compost toilet. Oh my gosh, the toilet's amazing. So you go to the bathroom and you're looking out at this gorgeous jungle outside, and you put sawdust on top of your business and the toilet, and that's it. And then eventually it turns into fertilizer for this huge farm. And I love learning the permaculture here, and I've learned fermentation, and I've made tofu and vegan cheese, and all from scratch, and I've made candles, and just really looking at your waste and how much food is in packaging that now you have to throw away, and just looking at your footprint and actually doing it. And it's one thing to read about it and to have an opinion about it, and it's another to actually ground it in this reality and do it. And that's what is happening here. And I'm, again, very grateful to be here and to have this.
I was just saying that you brought me back to a key point here that so many people like myself who does an awful lot of reading. Like you, love to study, and I do a lot of studying, but to actually participate, to implement, to you use the word ground yourself into actually doing those things. That is so important. And I think so many people just feel that they have to have, like I said earlier, all the ducks in order, and that's not necessarily true. Just the key word, just do it. Just do it. And so that's what I hear you saying.
Yeah. And a huge piece of it is having the other people, because they challenge. I've been challenged in a way that will not happen when I control everything. When I put all the ducks in a row and I have my friends to speak to, and I know exactly how we act together, and I go to the restaurants I want to go to, and I get to curate my life, that's all good and great. But when you're doing spiritual work and you're actually looking at yourself, you have to be challenged with a mirror or something that is surprising, because it brings out what you don't want to look at, but need to. And I've run into that so much, and it's been, I can be in my head and I can know everything, and oh, I don't do that, well, that doesn't apply to me, or I wouldn't. And then here it comes, and there it is right in your face, and these thoughts or ideas, and that doesn't sound like my ideal perfect self that I want to curate in the world. But here it is doing the human work. It's so, and I'm also, and now to actually take the risk and do the steps and do the work, instead of just thinking I'm great because I do all this self-study and self-improvement, but you're not actually doing anything, just reading books. You got to put it into action and see how you respond. And that's the beauty also of living in this community. So
I think you pretty well hit a gem right there, because there's so many people that are on the spiritual path that feel safeguarded. At least it's been my experience in knowing a lot of individuals that I've interacted with. But you talked about a key point there, is having your own community, your own whether you want to call it your spiritual community, however you want to identify it with. But I think that that's really important, because that interaction helps an individual look at themselves, to really go inward, and to I always like to use the whole idea is being real. Are you being real, or are you hiding behind something? And like you said earlier, when you are in a community, you are going to be challenged, because those different types of behavioral patterns will come up. So it sounds like a really growing experience there that you are participating in, along with learning, but so many different areas about yourself. And I think that that in itself is a beautiful growth.
yes, since I've been here, I've also listened to a podcast. It's a Kabbalah podcast, and it talked about confrontation. And for many people, that's a bad or scary word. Ooh, we don't want to be confronted. Ooh, Esther, I need to talk to you, and I'm going to confront you. But they talked about it from this angle. They're like, well, we need to know what's going on with the other person, because if we don't, like if you get upset, and it could be the most minor thing, or it could be the deepest, rooted pain, that somebody's pushing that pain button in you, and they don't even know they're doing it, and you're all upset. and so they said, let's look at it like closing the gap. Instead of I'm coming to tell you I want you to change your behavior to fit the way I think it should be, or else I'm going to be mad. They talk about coming at it, closing the gap, the space between the two people, and talking about how you feel and working through these things, because people get, when we get upset, it drives families apart, best friends apart, when these confrontations, when we have an opinion, you have a judgment, the way it should be done, even as small as the way you wash a dish, and you don't find these things out until you're in close quarters with another person. And now there you are having to work this stuff out. And so to have a system in place to learn how to do this where it can land for the other person in a way they can hear it, and then you cross back over and you find the way you both can be heard and both can be existing together. And it talking about it sounds so technical, but it happens all the time, and people just let go of relationships or not talk to that person again. And it's sad. We should be able, this is how you move through, this is how you grow, this is how you get mirrored, this is how you see your behavior, this is how you see and have empathy for another. And again, I'm for the first time, getting to work some of these things out that, I can't escape. There's that person down in the kitchen again. and there you are having these thoughts about them. And it's like, okay, you can live with those thoughts and you can be in that vibration, or
Exactly.
you can work it out and close the gap and be back in harmony and not have to be all holding the bag of a grudge or anger or whatnot, which is what I've done. And then I'm just like, F that person, and I'm not dealing with them. And that's not the way to grow if you have to meet these hurdles. And so I really love that podcast. And again, I'm getting to put it directly into action. And when I've had great results where two people can get clear, and it's not even a thing. You don't have to hold those preconceived ideas or things, stories we make up in our head.
I think again, just to go back and review what you were saying earlier, I liked your analogy that you were sharing in terms of the Kabbalah and how they presented that, because so many people don't want to confront because they don't know how. I think there's a technique to that. In our communication process, so many people use a technique that really scares another person on, so you can't really engage. And so I just think for so many of us, if you use a key word, and that word, I think so many people misunderstand it, and that word is empathy, how to empathize. And so when you are in that confronting communication, whatever situation arises, and I think just keeping in mind what your intentions are, I think that is so valid. And so I appreciate you sharing this.
Yeah, I've had it come up, and I get to look at the behavior because I have others around. I'm not sitting in my little house with my ideal, perfect idea of how it goes. And it's so interesting, and you can choose not to do the work, but that's the whole point of why we're here, is to move through this, and it becomes easier. And another thing they had said, which I really appreciated, is you're not responsible for their feelings. You don't have to be a jerk. You can say it in a way that is your truth, but it has to be spoken, or else it gets internalized and eats away at you from the inside out. And that's how disease and cancer and all sorts of things starts. And it's, if you don't go through these steps and work these things out with the people in your life, your boss, whoever, this is how this happens, and you have that choice, right? That big emotion is the sign that something is going on. Okay, now do I keep this and stuff it, or talk about them behind their back, or do I actually confront them in a way that is productive for everyone? And again, closing the space between you and the other person. And I really like that. And
I think that Amanda, you're really on top of a lot of things about emotional healing here, and I appreciate what you're saying, because there's so many people that don't know how to manage anger. And you said it, you hit it right on the head, that anger can turn into a disease. I mean, so many people end up with heart disease. We can get things in our body because we're holding on to an energy that we don't realize that we really need to resolve through communication. And so you're right on target. From my life experience, that it's really, some people just don't have the technique, or they're not willing to participate. So you said it in a nutshell. This is the part of our growth. This is why we're here.
And Lord knows I've had some anger, and I know that I have been to the military, and and so this is such a great way. And then you have to have courage to actually do the steps, to confront the person, to open your heart, to listen to what they have to say, to close that space. And it's not easy, and it's step by step, and there has to be humility and your own work with that. And I'm grateful to have that, because like one side of me, I'm this angel, and I am a creation from God. I am this angel, and I have this light. And then the other side of me has this fury, and you do not mess with it, and I could eat you in one gulp. And like and learning to channel that into a more constructive power versus hurting myself or others. And it again, I'm going through the work. I'm trudging through the field. I'm getting it done, and I found this to be a great place, because especially family, family is trickier, and it's there's so many landmines to step on, and like you buried the handle, but you buried the hatchet, but the handle's sticking out, like that song by Garth Brooks. Like there's so many touchy karmic little bits, and I find it much more difficult to do there. So this is a great practice zone of growth and moving through and looking at our behavior. And that's what life is. That's why we're here.
Yes.
We didn't come here to watch TV and get our nails did, like I've said in the past. Like
and you're right on. It's so interesting, because here we are a day after Christmas, and so many family members had a lot of connecting with issues that they dragged, because a certain aunt would say something and how to handle that. And so it's quite interesting to get through all that. And I wanted to ask you, as you were talking, how long have you been where you're located right now? You say you're at a chocolate factory.
I'm on a chocolate farm, so they grow the
Chocolate farm.
cacao. Yes, and they have, I think, 35 acres, and they grow all sorts of plants and trees and fruits and vegetables. And we've been eating out of the garden all these new leaves and vines and all the different parts of the plant that can be used and eaten. And I've been here for about 6 or 7 weeks. And so here we make the chocolate and also offer classes. So people come in and learn about the cacao from the actual the pod, which contains a bunch of goo inside, and then the seeds, which is the cacao that we know is chocolate. And the cacao itself is really bitter, and around it, it has this really sweet goo. It's amazing.
Right.
And then you roast the cacao, and there's a whole process. And the woman who owns this farm, it's called Palamanaka Chocolate, Ansel Mitchell. She is a storyteller from Scotland. So she's great at talking about the energy of the plant and all the different pieces.
Oh, how fun.
It's a very, like, the cacao is a very feminine plant, and she explains all the pieces, and you have to come to Puerto Viejo and take her class to learn more. But it's a great time.
Sounds like fun. So I mean, that was right down my alley, because I always like the history on things, Amanda. And I think that so many of us take for granted what we have here in our plant world and in our mineral world. And it just seems that sometimes there's just so much more that we can appreciate once we hear some of the history. And I really enjoy that. But you know what? This has really been a wonderful opportunity to read, have you share your journal and then get into these stories here that we talked about. So many beautiful lessons in themselves that you have spoke of. But I'd like to know if we could connect again soon. I'd like to have you back on, and we can continue to talk about the chocolate farm and how your journey's going with your lessons and the community. I think community is so important. And so is there anything you would like to share before we close off, and then we'll connect again real soon? Anything you'd like to share to the viewers?
I've just started paying attention to the hints and the winks of the universe, and it's so interesting to watch how it all lines up, and the perfect conflict at the perfect time, or the perfect opportunity, or whatever the sign is. And again, I've heard people talk about this, and coming from Wisconsin, I could easily dismiss it and just think they're all hootenanny, crazy, whatever. But it really is true. And I'm watching it unfold, even from a space that was skeptical before. And watching the perfect lesson line up, even if it doesn't feel right in the moment, you can look back with an honest view, and you're like, oh, now I see why that happened. And this is how I grew from that. And taking that responsibility in your life. And it's such a great journey. And even when it's challenging, I'm grateful. And thank you, Esther, for having me on your show.
Well, you're welcome.
Pleasure.
Well, you're welcome. Well, you've been delightful and so informative, and really appreciated it, learning about all the different little things that you said. Obviously, there are quite a few of them that I'd like to talk about a little bit more, but we'll get into that later. So with that said, I wish you a beautiful new year in your location. It sounds like you have so many things that you'll be unfolding in your journey, and I will hopefully get a hold of you soon so that we can get this up and running on YouTube, and everybody can join you there and learn right along the way. And so thank you again. And again, this is Esther Turner from Esther in the Neighborhood. And we like to thank Amanda here for joining us. So we'll talk to you soon. Thank you for joining us in Miss Esther in the Neighborhood. As you can see, there's so many lessons that we can learn from journaling and from just taking those points in life that can be so meaningful. I look forward to having you join us again on the next episode of Miss Esther in the Neighborhood. And a special thank you, shout out to Amanda Pulcine for allowing us to learn a lot about the area that she is living in, some of her great adventures. Thank you, and I look forward to seeing everyone again.